Okay, so let's finally talk about AI, the Somnium files, their Nirvana initiative. Now, before I say anything, before I talk about the presentation, the gameplay, the narrative, normally, if because this is the second game in the series, the first one being AI, the Somnium files, no subtitle, at least no subtitle that I remember, I would want to talk about my experience with the first game. And if I have no experience with the first game, just say I went into the second one. Now I'm interested in the first one or not interested, etc., etc. The problem is my memory of the first game is kind of weird because I remember most of the characters. Yeah, like I remember aspects about their personalities. Like I remember Moma, he's the Yakuza member who also had that thing for Iris. I remember Iris and Aset, you bet, and all the fact that she was super into conspiracies. Like one of the things I really remember from the first game is I did Iris's Somnium. I don't remember if she had one or two, but her Somnium about knives I did really late in the game. To the point where I'm doing all of this stuff about it. It's like, all right, there's a human culprit. This is how things are going. I'm kind of figuring shit out too. Hey, it's entirely possible that this shadowy organization that may or may not be like aliens or something is involved in everything. I'm like, what? What? Please. I did all this shit. I'm thinking this is going to be super interesting. Now we're doing this dumb shit. Okay, sure. And then as it turns out, Iris is just kind of nuts. And that has nothing to do with anything. I was like, oh, that was a fun distraction, thank goodness. And a buddy of mine who has also played like he's played all the Zero Escape games. I've only played through 999. I played some of Virtue's Last Reward. I personally wasn't getting as into it, which is sad because from what I've heard, most people consider it the best one, but I loved 999. But my buddy who had finished Zero Escape and absolutely loves it, he's like, yeah, so the thing is, I did Iris's Somnium like really early. So the whole like Niza Law thing, I was like, oh, this is really interesting. This is kind of cool. I want to see where this goes. And then it was clear that this is not at all where it was going, and it made me really disappointed. I just think that's really interesting in a game like that where it's very non-linear, especially at points. Depending on what you see when you see it, can really impact how much you enjoy the story, or at least the direction of the story. I just think that's kind of interesting. Like, I remember a lot of the plot of the first game, but the thing I really don't remember is the character writing. Like, I remember the game's tone. It's a lot like this game. It's very, very goofy. It's very silly. And then there's also the parts like, yeah, we're working on a murder investigation. And the person we're dealing with is kind of insane. It's despite all its like the goofy veneer, there is a very sick twisted core to what is happening, and the game doesn't shy away from that. It's very much like Danganronpa in that regard, and it's a different director, but it's from the same company. And from what I understand, both the directors left Spike and Chunsoft and then made their own company, which is not Tokyo Games. I think it's Two Kill Games, if I'm right about that. And I believe Somnium, or at least Somnium 2, I'm not as sure about Somnium 1, is a Tokyo game along with Raincode, which is on my list for this year. I don't know what I'm going to get to it. What it shows up when I roll for it. But maybe I'll just say fuck it and play it after 3 load. Because I'm very much looking forward to Raincode. But the reason I bring all this up is not only to say I have a familiarity with the first game and I do like it, but also to say because it's been a while, especially with the character writing, I don't know how much I can really compare the two games and the two experiences. Especially with like how Moma's written in one game compared to the other, how Date's written in one game compared to the other. So I'm really just going to be, and to be fair, I should be evaluating Nirvana Initiative on its own merits anyways. But I feel like I really kind of have to because unfortunately my memory of the first game, at least in those details, is kind of spotty. But with all that being said, I had a dang great great time with Somnium too. So let's just get into it. Let's start with the presentation. So the first thing is just the aesthetics of the game, and I like it. It's not, what is Danganronpa called? Because I wrote it that Psychopop. That's it. It doesn't have Danganronpas like the cardboard cutouts or like the Psychopop designs and like colors and whatnot. For the most part, it seems a bit more grounded. Like, yeah, like they maybe I mean, fuck, what does Mizuki wear? It's like kind of like this neon yellow coat. It's like, I don't know, like there's some color in here, don't get me wrong. And like Leon wearing his like fucking grimace purple outfit. But I feel like for the most part, the designs are kind of grounded in reality. And then you get Komeiji, who has a Minecraft square head, which just really makes him stand out. Or Gen, who's wearing this outfit and this mask where he just looks like a cartoon character, which makes sense in context, but you're also just like, huh. Because I remember the first time I saw Gen, I was like, was he in the first game? Yeah, he was. I remember the suit. I'm like, wait, no. That was a polar bear suit, and it was specifically something that the killer put on. No, this is new, I think. What the hell is that? Why is this dude's head square? It's great. I love that. I love just the weird things in the designs that make me go, huh? We're doing this? Okay, I'm on board. I have so many questions, and I know none of them will be answered, and I kind of weirdly appreciate that about you. The voice acting, I think I played it in English, by the way. I feel I should go and say that. I really liked it, and I think it's really good. So, Kizuna, and I'm mostly just going to call her Kizzy. Kizzy is voiced by Amelie, and there was a point, I don't remember if it was during the first time I heard the song. I don't think it was. I think it was maybe the second time I heard it. I was like, why does this voice, like, especially the singing voice, sound so familiar? Is that Amelie? And I looked it up, like, oh, it is. Like, that's really neat. So during the climax of the game, I should go and say there are full spoilers for this game. Probably full spoilers for the first game as well. I don't know how often I will actually be referencing things that happen in the first game, but just in case I do, spoilers for that, definitely spoilers for the Nirvana Initiative. There's a part during the climax of the game where she has, I think it was like a minigun, and then she just yells, "Come get some, motherfuckers!" And I was like, that was hilarious. Like, I was not expecting to hear this voice actor say that, and that's funny. And then it was like a couple days later, I don't remember what the context was, but she had said something on Twitter, it was like something motherfucker. I was like, huh. You know, insert Phineas and Ferb nickel joke. Like, that's twice that's happened, and it's not much. I just didn't think it would happen twice. I thought it was a lot of fun. Karina Boetger, I'm probably mispronouncing their name, and I apologize for that, but I want to give them a shout out. Because they voice, for all intents and purposes, 3 different characters in this game. You have little baby Mizuki during all the sections of the plot that take place 10 years ago. She plays grown-up Mizuki when she's 18. And she also voices Bibi, who is... We'll get to that. It's like, oh boy, that's a whole can of worms to unpack. But she voices 3 different characters, and I can't say that she makes Bibi and Mizuki sound distinct, because that's also kind of the point, is they sound the exact same. I guess in a sense she voices 4 characters, because then when you're in the 10 years into the future and Bibi is older, she does have an older sounding voice. Like, at that point, she sounds distinct from 18-year-old Mizuki and 18-year-old Bibi. But one of the really interesting things is when Bibi is using the voice changer and her voice is heavily synthesized, I could still tell who was talking. This was even before the reveal, because the first time I saw Bibi, I just see like this person wearing a mask. I'm like, huh, you look about the size of Mizuki? I'm gonna guess this is Mizuki just I don't know, doing some Batman shit. And then later I see Mizuki and this masked person in the same scene. I'm like, okay. Okay, clearly I'm wrong. I don't know. I still have this theory that it's Mizuki. That there's some weird, I don't know if I'm going to think a clone, which is what I ended up being, ish. But it's like, maybe it's some kind of time travel shenanigans, and I'm here from the future to save the me of the past and solve everything. I was like, I don't know. I'm not giving up this Mizuki theory, and part of it is because I can hear it. Despite there's this synthesized voice in this filter, I can hear Mizuki's voice in here. Huh. And I like that. Yeah. I like the fact that even though there's all this shit going on, I could still tell whose voice it was. And it was a major clue into figuring out what was going on, like, behind the scenes. And I just think that's really is. I had to give her a shout out for, I've actually did fantastic voice acting. And Jackie Lestra, I believe, is Iris's voice actress. Now, Iris, unfortunately, doesn't get to do a whole lot in this game, which is just kind of sad, but the fact that we're actually dealing with knives at law, and that was a whole thing from the first game, it feels like a little bit of a wasted opportunity, but there's so much other shit, so much really interesting shit that I'm not super torn up about it. But when she gets to play Moma using the voice changer to make his voice sound like Iris, it's gold. I think it's so funny. Like, I gotta give her a shout out for that too. It only happens a few times, but it's so funny every time it happens. The other thing I have to say about the presentation is the music. I think a lot of just the themes in the Somnium and the overworld, I guess that's what I'll call it, like the overworld music is quite good. The themes that really, I guess to me there's two songs that really stand out for very different reasons. One is Kizzy's song, because it's played throughout the entire game. And it's like the first time it plays, it's like, okay, this is really stupid. But it's like the song from the first game. It's really dumb, but it's a lot of fun, and you can tell, like, the voice actress is having a lot of fun performing it, and it's just good, goofy, dumb shit. But it just it keeps playing, and I'm like, I don't know, it was kind of fun the first time, and now it's not as fun. Now it's maybe a little annoying. Like, I don't hate it. I don't really like it. And then by the end, because you know it's a Somnium game, you know how it's gonna end. There's gonna be a big dance party, and yeah, the dance party ending is great. It's a ton of fun, and of course this is the song they're playing. I'm like, I don't know. It's looped back around to being dumb, goofy fun, and I appreciate it. The other really memorable song is the title theme, which every time I booted up the game, I kind of liked it. I didn't love it, but I was like, I don't know, I kind of like it. They're just, ooh, like the vocals on it, I think, are really nice. There's something very haunting about it, which, again, despite all the goofiness you're about to encounter, it's a Somnium game. There's a lot of really, like, unsettling shit, some really creepy shit. Then when I got to the true ending, the nil number, and hopefully we're going to talk about that when we get to it, and the moment that the title theme kicked in during that ending, I'm just, like, hearing those vocals, I got chills. I got goosebumps. I was like, yeah, that title theme also looped around to being phenomenal. Oh, boy. Oh, this was unsettling. This was super interesting. This was incredible. Don't like that I'm playing it, like, alone at 2 a.m. in the morning. It's all there's a demon coming after me. I know it. Oh, it was great. In terms of the presentation, I got really nothing bad to say. I think the voice acting is fantastic. I think the aesthetics are fantastic. I think the music is very solid throughout. And there's a couple songs that, by the end of the game, really got me. To me, it's a 5 out of 5. And now we get to talk about the gameplay. So, there's a lot of different despite how simple the game is, because for the most part it's just like point and click, there's a lot of different ways that the gameplay manifests. So first off is just in the overworld, point and click. Point at this, a little bit of narration, click on this person, talk to them, here's the different things you can say. I spent a lot of time just clicking on everything. Because sometimes it'll just be like, for example, like if I click on the Keyblade over here, it'll just say, hey, there's a giant key hanging from a wall and nothing else. But sometimes it'll be, you'll kind of click on it and you'll just get like a dialogue prompt where either Ryuki and Aiba or BB and Tama, or depending on where you're at, it might be Boss or it might be Mama, will just kind of make some joke about whatever the thing is that you clicked on. Like, I think it's like whenever you're at the bar, I don't remember what the bar is called, but whenever you're at Mama's bar and you click on the TV, she'll just say like, oh, can I interest you in watching, something like this? And she'll make it sound really suggestive, and then it's like, no, it's like, don't fall for it, Ryuki. She's just like, it's elephants at the zoo, like shit like that. But I don't know, I find that really fun. And there's, especially in Boss's office, like there's the talking there's like this talking policeman doll, and I think his name is Mario, which I'm just thinking Mario every time. And he'll just kind of like say shit, and like, it's fun, I enjoy that. And then half the time, like there's times sometimes we'll just like click on something and then you'll have Ryuki go, it's all right now because I am here, half might. And I fucking love it. It's so silly. Like, this is how you get a lot of just the really silly, goofy dialogue, is just by clicking on random shit and seeing what people say. And it's amazing. So that's one kind of gameplay. And of course, like, if you click on the right thing, it'll lead to the right conversation so you can move forward with the plot. Or talk to people and like, I need to get this information, this information. Not every dialogue prompt is necessary. Some are just inane things to kind of maybe flesh out the situation a bit more, the character a bit more, and some of it is just, here's something really goofy that can happen as a part of the conversation. Speaking of really goofy stuff, the VR sections, where your AI ball, whether that's Tama or Aiba, I feel really bad that I couldn't remember Aiba's name for a second, the thick police officer or the fluorescent shrimp, which you can call Aiba at one point, and that was really funny to me, will like recreate a space, and your character can fully wander around and interact with things. And it's kind of like in Danganronpa, where at the end of the class trial, you have like the manga section, like, okay, what happened here? What happened here? You're doing something very similar. You look at all this stuff, and then your AI ball will like roll the camera, and your police officer, who is either Ryuki, Mizuki, or Mizuki, if you play the game, you know what I'm talking about, it's Mizuki or Bibi, will act out the scene as like the killer, or who, I don't know, I don't remember if it's the killer every single time. I think it is, but like with Ryuki in particular, it's like bad acting and it's hilarious. I think with Mizuki and Bibi, like they took it a little more seriously, and it was just really fun. But they'll be like, okay, what do you think the killer did at this point when you're looking at stuff? And it's like, okay, this is the right answer, which will forward the plot and everything that's going on. You can also give wrong answers, which will lead to like really funny interactions and really funny dialogue. And I didn't do it every time. I didn't like go out of my way to explore every option, because there were definitely points where I was like, okay, I do just kind of want to get through this section right now. But I definitely saw some goofy shit, and it's great. It's an important part of AI's just, it's je ne sais quoi, its personality, its soul, and I love that. And I think those sections they're pretty fun. They're not like amazing, but I think they're pretty fun. There's quick time events during the action scenes against them as Ryuki, Mizuki, or Bibi. They're fine. They're not very fun, I'll be perfectly honest, because there's nothing really funny going on. And even if like you miss an event, or like you miss a button prompt or something like that. It's not like you get something funny or you actually get to see a scene of your character mess up and then it's like, oh shit, Ryuki just broke his leg. We gotta try this again. It's just fade to black. Oh no, Ryuki or Mizuki, and then you just do it again. It's not fun to play. It's not particularly interesting. It's not terrible, but it's like eh. But then you have Somniums. This is the main gameplay gimmick of the series, where your detective goes into a person's dreamscape and has to interact with things, puzzle solve. There will usually be some kind of theme. There's some really memorable ones in this game. I liked Kizzy's a lot. I'm a sucker for fairy tales. Like, I marathoned Ruby a couple months ago, and I'm just a sucker for fairy tale themed things, so I liked hers a lot. Here, I wrote down a list of some of the ones that really stuck out to me. Gen's I loved. The whole cook-off thing, like the rest of his Somnium I think is quite good, but just that whole cook-off section and okay, Iva, we need to get you really good at this, so like we're gonna use a timey to put like years of experience into like 1 second was great. I absolutely loved that, and like how insane, like I think she made like a dessert Tower of Babel. I'm like, that's the second time this year I've had something with the Tower of Babel. The other, of course, being Symphogear. Actually, no, because I started AI this year. Symphogear was last year. My mistake. But it's just, of course, that made me think of Symphogear, because now anytime I think of the Tower of Babel, I'm going to think of the Tower of Babel moon laser from Symphogear. And watch Symphogear. It's wonderful. The cook-off is really fun. BB Somnium being in Chikara's lab is very intense. Especially just like the colors, like how Chikara is like all inverted and it's like it's creepy as hell. Terror Somnium, I had no idea what I was doing or how to solve it. There were points where I was like, I understand this. They're like, I understand this. I'm just not like pulling it off right. And there are other points where I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing. So the game was like, do you just want help with this one? Yes, I do. Like, I'm sorry. This is way beyond my brain, dude. What's happening? Chikara's is like combining the different parts of the body. Like, oh, great Chikara. And I think it's really fun. It's actually, like, in hindsight, I think it's one of my favorites. Ryuki Somnium, after you've done his storyline, there's a part I really like where the whole thing becomes upside down and the controls are inverted. Like, this is really cool. This is some weird dreamscape shit going on, and I think it's phenomenal. Amame's second, I think, is okay. It's just mostly plot stuff. The quiz show, her first Somnium, I think is great. Iris has the best one. You're just playing Pokemon Go, and you're like using the members of the cast as your Pokemon. I think it's Kusabon Go. You're playing Pokemon Go. It's so funny. It's so, like, this is peak Somnium goofiness. And I loved everything about it. Also, speaking of peak Somnium goofiness, there's a character in this game. There is an investigator. And every time you interact with him, you can ask him for his name. And you can keep doing that because you keep forgetting what his name is. And I'm being dead ass. I can't remember his name. I feel so bad. But like, I did it every time. I'm like, yeah, like, this is just such a silly bit. Didn't matter if I was Ryuki, Mizuki, or Baby. And I know you can do it in the first game as Dante. You just keep doing it. I'm like, oh no, I actually don't remember his name. That's really bad. But it is so on brand. The gameplay for this game overall, it's nothing special. It is point and click, a little bit of moving around, but ultimately still point and click. Quick time events, which aren't that fun. And then what do the Somniums boil down to? It's puzzle solving, but a lot of pointing and clicking. With also just, sometimes you could get, oh, bless you, bub. You can get a prompt completely wrong, leading to goofy shenanigans. But it's still fun. I mean, like, I think it's the writing in these moments that really save the gameplay. Because when I look at it, like, yeah, the game is not, what you actually do is maybe not particularly interesting outside of the Somnium. And even inside the Somnium, like, actually physically what you're doing with it, like, it's pretty good, it's pretty fun. But it's the writing of all just the goofiness and how bad they want to experience the new goofy shit elevates the gameplay. I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5. I think that's fair. I think that... Sorry, I just want to check the charge on my phone real quick. Oh, I think we're Gucci. I think we'll be able to finish this. It's great. I liked it a lot. I had a good time. Now let's talk about the narrative. Let's get into the story of Somnium 2. So, the way the game presents itself is you are playing as Mizuki. Half a body is found. And then you talk to Ryuki, who is another police officer who worked on this same case 6 years ago. So you go into Ryuki's Somnium, and then you, the player, are now playing as Ryuki. I think was I saying 10 years ago when I was talking about Mizuki and Bibi? I think I did. That's my mistake. It's 6 years ago. Wait, was it? Am I now making things up? I think it was 6. Did I write it down? Am I just making up the number 6 because I don't know anything? No, it is 6. Okay. Thank you. I'm gonna pretend it's 6. I'm now starting to really doubt myself. All because I can't remember it. Kagami. That's his name. Kagami. I remembered his name. It just took me a while. It was just somewhere in my Somnium. Someone had to do some really goofy shit in my head to make me to unlock the snaky look. Anyways. You're playing as Ryuki 6 years ago. And you do all of Ryuki's stuff. And then after you finish that, then you are playing as Mizuki in the present. And you do all of her stuff. There were parts while I was playing Mizuki's story where I thought, no, something's weird here. Hold on a second. The way they're talking about Komeiji and them finding the other half of his body, they're making it sound like they found the first half like a day or two ago. But Ryuki did that. Ryuki was 6 years ago. There's like a temporal discrepancy here. Am I in the past? Is there time travel in this? Oh my goodness, I was talking about how Mizuki might be, like, how the masked person might be a time traveler. Am I right? Is that what's going on? And there's the scene where, like, Date is talking to, like, 18-year-old Mizuki, and he's like, you look a lot like her. I'm like, he's not talking to his Mizuki. Like, what's going on? And the way that Mizuki is acting to Date right now, but Date's been dead for 6 years, or at least mysterious, like, he's disappeared at best. She's acting like it's completely normal to see him. Something's wrong here. And then Leon calls up Mizuki and he's like, yeah, I don't know where Kizzy is. We were watching this video and then she, like, disappeared and I think she got kidnapped. Like, that happened 6 years ago. Why am I seeing it now? What's going on? There's massive continuity errors. But I trust this game enough to know these aren't continuity errors. What are you doing? Then before you play, like, the finale, like the climax of the game, you have this conversation. You, the player, because there's a few times where you, the player, are specifically called out, or the Freyr, and I love those parts. I think it's really neat. You were specifically called out and talking to Mama, or at least like her supernatural entity thing, because now she's a fortune teller and it works. Who tells you probably figured it out at this point, or like you have your inclination that the timeline you've been given is wrong. So the timeline, because you can literally see it as a chart, just starts to like merge and mess with each other, and it looks like DNA strands, which is very, very fitting for what this game is all about. It messes and like intermingles. So what you realize is there are parts when you were playing as Ryuki 6 years ago, but part of his story is taking place in the present. Like the part where characters are just saying like, yeah, something about a rocket, which comes right out of nowhere, and I'm like, that's weird. Okay. Like, that's important because that's a present day thing. And when you're playing as Mizuki, there's times when you were playing as Mizuki in the present, and there's times when you're actually playing as Bibi in the past. And like, that's so cool. This is really cool and really neat, and I love it. I really do. I think what's so cool about it is this is a twist that does nothing to the actual story. It's not a big reveal for any of the characters because they all know the actual timeline of events. It is purely for the players, purely for the Freyr. Just something to mess with you. And if you've been paying attention, you can tell that something's off. And then you paying attention, you're sleuthing because you're playing a detective game, gets rewarded with the fact that, yeah, you're completely right. This is weird, isn't it? I just think that's cool. I really, really like that. So, when I talk about the plot, I have it in chronological order. But I feel like it's important I explain the whole weird timeline shenanigan thing before I get into it. Because I do think the actual plot, like when you have it all laid out and you have all the background information, is genuinely really interesting. But I think the way the game is told does kind of elevate it because of how unique it is when you actually understand how it's being told. I love it. But, hey, Bubba, you need a scratch. You need a scratch. Oh, sweet boy. You want to come sit with me and hear the story of AI, the Somnium Files, Nirvana initiative? Yeah. So here's what happens. You have a serial killer who killed 3 people. Who is it? So Terror is the name of the serial killer. Not Terror like Terror, but like rip and tear, Tearer. So Terror killed Chikara. It was Jin, I think, first. Jin Furue, Chikara Horodori, and then Andy's Komeiji. I can't remember what Komeiji's real name is. That's just how I remember him. Who was someone who had specifically kind of messed with him. He's like, I gotta take care of this. But he was doing it for his cult, for Nizet laws, for the Nirvana. I'm gonna try it. The whole ring thing. I can't do it quite right, but I can almost kind of do it. Oh, that was a hiccup. I did not like that. That kind of hurt. Ow. But, bless you. So, Terror was kept in a dungeon in Horodori Institute, which was an institute all about genetics and the genome and DNA, and conducted a lot of experiments on people, like DNA splicing, to essentially make the perfect person. So Terror was a victim of that and was kept in the dungeon to be used as an organ donor for Chikara's son, Jin Furue, who was essentially the messiah to this cult. I don't remember what it was. Like, he had some birthmark, and I can't remember what it was, but he had a birthmark, and they're like, oh, that is like our sign. This kid is like perfect, but he was dying. He had this sickness. So they found the perfect organ donor and essentially took that organ donor, who was a kid at the time, put him in the basement, and like, this is what you exist for. You exist to serve Jin. There are 3 detectives. You have or at least at this point, 6 years ago, that are looking into the serial killer. You have Date, who's doing it very low key. He's like, look, I'm on vacation. There's shit going on. I'm going to look into it, but I'm on vacation. Other people can do it. You have Ryuki, who has a justice fetish because 6 years ago, his brother was, I think that was also 6 years ago. His brother had died. I believe it was his twin brother, had died chasing a criminal. And ever since then, Ryuki's been like, this is my thing. I want to stop criminals. And it's all, I am here, half might. Which I love. And, excuse me. The other detective is BB. BB is someone who was a victim of the Horodori Institute. She suffered like the DNA splicing and etc., and it gave her superhuman strength, which is why Mizuki is so strong. And Mizuki specifically, Mizuki Date, is BB's clone, who BB essentially views as her little sister. Because that's another scene. There's this one scene where Mizuki is talking to Shoma about her little sister and how like fiercely protective of her she is, how much she loves her. And without the full picture, like, she's talking about Kizzy? I don't buy it. Like, I know that she and Kizzy are close, but with with how much, like, affection and love she's talking about, like, they're not that close. And then in hindsight, like, that's BB talking about Mizuki, and that makes a lot of sense. Oh, that's so good. Anyways, and then you have Mizuki, who is also the adopted daughter of Boss. I don't remember what Boss's real name is. I just know where's Boss. Who was the head of this group of detectives. This, like, sect of the police and the detectives. So, Terror holds Tama, who is Ryuki's AI partner. He holds her hostage. He's like, look, I can break her. I can destroy all of her data unless you do exactly as I say and you work for me. So Ryuki stuns BB, which aggravates her heart condition. So BB is sick for essentially the rest of the timeline. And he lures Date, Mizuki, Leon. Was there someone else? I don't think so. He lures them into this underground facility using Kizzy as bait. Oh, Gen was there too. And there is an explosion. Date is seemingly killed, but he does survive. He just had amnesia for 6 years. Mizuki loses her eye, which is why later she gets Aiba in there. Leon is fine. Gen is fine. Kizzy is permanently paralyzed. So 6 years later, Terror and his adopted mother, who was the biological mother of, I almost said of Chikara, of Jin Furue, and with Chikara, what's her name? Tokiko, thank you. Well, Tokiko, they are both murdered. And people believe that it was Terror who did it because they don't know Terror was one of the victims. So there are, again, 3 detectives working on solving this case in the present. You have Ryuki, who is going under... He has severe hallucinations. Part of that is because he's infected with... I can't remember what the virus was. I think it's called, like, T-Purge or something like that. That's making him see hallucinations. There's the fact that he got... Like, his actions got Date killed, who was someone that he very much looks up to. Possibly a romantic interest. There was kind of some hints there, and I don't know, because I think there's a point where he says, like, I love you, or I loved him, and I don't know if that's, like, I loved him as a superior, or if it's, like, no, I was genuinely in love with him. But, because of the hallucinations, what happened to Date, and his own just kind of fractured mental state in general, he thinks it's 6 years ago, and he's, like, with these deaths happening, he's like, oh, I have to stop Terror. Terror's still active. Hey, Tama, let's look into what happened to Chikara. And Tama's like, it's... Okay. Ryuki, are you okay? TC Purge, that's it. I believe that was the name of the virus. So there's that. You have... Excuse me. You have BB, who was doing investigations without Aiba now. as this masked woman, and then you have Mizuki Date, who now has Aiba and is also doing these investigations as well. I also believe that when BB got stunned, it also like fried some of Aiba's memory, so Aiba does not remember her time with BB, which is why she doesn't really comment on anything timeline related. So, the new killer of Terror, just Terror, because we find out she did not kill Tokiko. Tokiko killed herself to, reach Moksha and whatnot, is Amame. Amame is a friend of Kizzy, a friend of Iris, a friend of both Mizuki's. The reason she killed Terror is because she's Komeji's daughter, and she wanted revenge for what happened to her dad. So, and afterwards, after she gets arrested, because Mizuki really doesn't want to arrest her friend, but it's also she did commit murder, so I do have to. When you talk to other characters, they essentially revere Amame as this local hero. It's yeah, she was a murderer. She killed a serial killer who was also trying to end the world through this crazy virus and whatnot. She kind of did everyone a favor. Maybe you should let her out of prison. And oh yeah, that's also right. The big climax is trying to stop a rocket from blowing up in the sky and releasing TC purge on everybody, making everyone go crazy, because Nyes they believe in simulation theory. None of this is actually real. We are in a simulation. We're in a game, which is one of those things where I'm literally playing a game. So for them, they're not wrong. Boy, that's a weird feeling. And what they want to do is expose the fact that we are in a simulation. So what they want to do is have us programs start doing things that we're not supposed to do as programs. Start to show off the glitches and tear the seams of the program. That's why it's the frayer and not just the player. It's because if you look at it as a fabric, you are fraying the fabric. What is it, the warp and weft, which I believe are actually knitting terms. I like that. You're tearing the seams, you're fraying the seams. Oh, that's kind of fun. I like that. You stop the explosion, and Amelie's come get some, motherfuckers, and then there's a big dance party. It's great. So going into some of the characters and whatnot, you have Komeiji and Shoma, who are Amame's father and Amame's brother, respectively. Komeiji is this failed comedian who is trying his best, and then you have Shoma, who was his son, who was also a victim of Chikara Horodori, who is heavily bullied because people see his dad as a loser, which causes him to resent his dad, even though he absolutely loves his dad and adores his dad. And there's this one ending where Komeiji survives, and his relationship with Shoma, it's wonderful, and it's healthy, and it's beautiful, and I adored it, and it's not actually what happens. It's so sad. You have Gen, who is a chef who wears a mask so he can hide his, as I put in my notes, his Quasimodo-ass face. Because I don't think you ever truly see Gen without his mask, but it's very clear that I believe he was also a victim of Horodori. And you see an x-ray of his face. It is misshapen. He's most people who see me view me as a monster. They're terrified of me. It's why I love Amame, because Amame is one of... I think he said there were two people that have ever seen his face to not view him as a monster. One is Amame, and the other is Date. I kind of like that. It's Amame is because she's such a loving, kind-hearted person, and Date is just a bro about it. It's I love Date. Date's great. And as a result, he is fiercely protective of Amame. There is one ending, it's the Amame Gen ending, where Gen dies protecting her, and it's really sad. You've got Leon and Kizzy. So Leon is this former thief who was down on his luck, and he sees Kizzy dance and sing, and he becomes obsessed with her, and it didn't leave a great first impression, because he's really creepy and very I don't know, what's the persistent, and not in like the, I don't know, I didn't find it to be like, yeah, it's likable how persistent he is. Like, no, no means no, buddy. But his love for her is very genuine, especially after the accident where he's like, no, like I still want to be with you and I want to do what I can to make you happy. It's him specifically telling her, it's like, if you can't dance, if you can't move your legs, then I will be your legs. And like, there's a point where like during the big dance party ending, like he's moving around with her and holding her so she can dance. I'm like, I did not care for Leanne in the early part of the game. And the more it went on, I was like, I like this dude. I just wish like it wasn't so creepy, but by the end, I'm like, no, I do like him. And the whole engagement slipper thing, especially because she's a big fan of fairy tales, like that just kind of did it for me. Like, that's so endearing. I loved the engagement slipper, as silly as it is. I talked about the climax of the game. I think and I talked about that there's a dance party ending, and it's great. It's a blast. Then there's the nil number, where there is a point during Ryuki's story. I think it is the first time you talk to Tokiko, and she's talking to you, the player, and she even says, she's like, I'm not talking to you, Ryuki, I'm talking to you. And she asks you about the nil number, which is something you do not have. You do not get it until the very end of the game. And it is, from what I understand, it is unique to every copy of the game. So if you were to do a full New Game Plus, you would have your nil number if you wrote it down, which I did. Mine was 799862, and it's like, of course there's 2 nines in there. There has to be a fucking 9 in there. But, nines, baby. If it's your first time playing it, like it's a new copy, you have no way of knowing what your nil number is. You could try, like, I don't even think you can try multiple combinations. I think you can just try one, and then it's like, yeah, you don't know it. Which I like. You can't, unless you, like, rolled 4 nat 20s in a row and pure luck, you're probably not going to get it. So you can't just look it up. Which makes sense, given what it's all about. You can go back to that point, because you can mess around the flowchart, whether it's the true timeline or not true timeline, go to different events. So as soon as you get the nil number, you could go back there, put it in, and the game breaks. Like, there's a dude in there who's T-posing, and he's clipping through the floor, and his eyes are all black, and Tokiko is gone. And you have full control of Ryuji, which again is something you normally don't have in the game, and you run through the walls and you realize there's nothing around there. It's just this big empty space, because in this game they don't have to program what's outside of the room. And you just keep running, and then you find Tokiko just in the corner, and you talk to her about how she's like, this is like, here's the thing. Ryuki told me the number. I never gave that number to Ryuki. I gave that specifically to Bibi and Mizuki. Like 10 years, and I made sure to do it 6 years in the past. Or excuse me, 6 years in the future. So he right now, actually no, I think that conversation with Tokiko, no, I think that conversation with Tokiko was 6 years in the past too. Like, he has no way of knowing that number, which proves that I'm right. It proves that there is something going on, like something controlling him, giving him that information from the future, proving that this is a simulation. I have reached moksha, and I thank you for proving that I was right and giving me this release. Now, you have a choice. You can tell Ryuki all of this, everything that's going to happen, or you cannot. And if you don't tell him, you just continue the game as normal. If you do tell him, you get a different ending. Where, because Ryuki knows everything that's about to happen, Terror gets caught. Komeiji doesn't die, so he's able to have a happy life with his son. Amame doesn't kill Terror, so she doesn't go to prison, so she's able to just hang out with Gen. excuse me, like the explosion didn't happen, so Mizuki gets to keep her eye. Date didn't lose any time, with his adopted daughter. It's the wrong ending, but it's the right ending. And Ryuki just kind of has that sense of, I know I did the right thing, but just something about this feels weird. And there is just this whole weird uncomfortableness to the ending, even though it's right and it's good. And I love it. It's like, I feel like the story itself is interesting. I think it's genuinely compelling. The way it's told is really cool. And to me, just makes it more unique and it makes me appreciate it more. But then this shit. This was my favorite part of the game. And it's kind of what elevated it from being like really good, and I would think great too. This is something that's gonna stick with me for a while. This was special. And so, I'd probably give it like a 6 out of 5 for its narrative, with how much I loved it at the end. Also, I didn't talk about the best ending in the game. The best ending in the game is when Ryuki gets to go to Atami with the secretary with the big boobs, which is also a thing from the first game. And I remember that. It's like, if you keep talking to her, or like you keep looking at her, it's like, there's a secretary with big boobs. There's big boobs. And it just gets more and more like deranged. And then your character just goes, go on a date with me. We have to go on vacation right now. And you get it at day. It's like, yeah, the case was never solved, but hey, you had a good time. And it's just really funny. That's Somnium 2. It's really goofy. It's really funny. There's still a very interesting story in there. I like the characters. I liked learning the bits of backstory and the twists. I love the timeline twist. And that final ending with the nil number was just the cherry on top. Absolutely fantastic. Glad I played it. And even though I just spoiled the shit out of it, I hope you enjoy it as well if you ever have a chance to play it.